gets first go? No. We'll both have a turn, alright? Let's have a go. Hello everybody. Hey, yeah, right, so I've got version 2 ready. Okay, who's excited? Okay, right, let's get this done. So, in 3, 2, 1. Do you like it, Ava? Is it good? Let me just move that out. There we go. Do you want to have a go with it? There we go. Shall I sit you on the edge and we'll have a go with it? Who's first? Who's first? Who gets first go? No. We'll both have a turn, alright? Let's have a go. So Ava got turn first last time, didn't you? There we go. So we're doing it this time. There you go, you're doing it. Nice. Who's super excited? Alrighty, so yeah, you're next, are you? How long ago did you get, Corbin? There we go. So version 2 looking much better. Needs to do a bit of work on my carpentry skills, but to be honest, I think we're pretty much there. Okay, I've come to DJX today, which is part of Digital Jersey, my work, just to use some of the facilities, but you don't have to. You can do this in your kitchen, as my first prototype was. I've got a bit of a helper today in the workshop. Corbin, say hello. Hello. There we go. He's definitely going to help me, aren't you, today? Yeah, and we've got a bit of a workshop, and like I said, I've just come in here just to learn some of the techniques and tools, and I'm going to show you how to make the adaptive controller. Okay, so what I've got parts-wise is I've just got a basic electronics kit. I got the buttons that I've put the link on for people to have a look at. These are the crux of everything. The key and possibly the only difficult part is when you do get the controllers for the joysticks here that we've got. These are the joysticks that have their knobbles on the top here that are actually changeable. You can have round ones, you can have these ones, but they're going to go into this part of the controller here using what is like a standard kind of printer cable. Yeah. Now the issue is this would normally, with all the buttons, they would normally just use these spadey type connectors here that look like that, and then these bits connect directly into here. Now in a normal arcade game that would mean that every button goes through the USB, and that's our problem. With the adaptive controller here that we have, we need to put every controller into these jacks. So what we're going to have to do is take each of these cables here and attach them to a jack like I've got here. They unscrew, and then you can connect them, you can twist them, and I'm going to show people different ways of doing this without soldering as well as with soldering. And we're going to use a fair bit of electrical cable, speaker wire cable, just two parts there to have a look at that. So I'm going to show you how to do everything, and like I said, we're not using much, just the buttons, a bit of kit here. I'm going to show you some different ways to attach, running from soldering to easy stuff, and here's the piece of acrylic. I've marked it out and I'll put these dimensions online as well, but this is the customizable part. The only difficult part that I found was that the holes for the arcade buttons aren't standard in what most kits might get. So you might get a piece of wood drill bits like that I had to buy 28 millimeters is the size of these ones. Most kits go up to 24, so I didn't really have that, and I've also gone for this kind of posher kind of wood drill here, because I think when I drill in that will be less likely to crack the acrylic than this one, because it kind of just takes it all out in one hit. But I'll play around with that, and I might have an accident or two drilling the acrylic. You can use wood, that's up to you, and I'm just going to drill that out, and I've got another piece of wood to drill into so I don't damage the workbench, and that's it really. So the next part will be me doing this bit by bit. Corbin and I are going to have a go at some drilling, aren't we? So we've drilled them out. I've got a bit of wood underneath to stop this in. I'm going to use the normal kind of wood drill bit here because I think that's easier to come by than my other piece, but I'll try that afterwards. Yeah. So where are we going to go for? Here, Corbin? Yeah. Okay, so let's go for that. Yeah, they've been butch footage, so I don't think they're really gentle. Now I can see it's fracturing a little bit there, so I'm a little bit nervous. So it is going through, potentially why it's fracturing there. So I might just come from the other side, just to do this. So actually that went quite well. Is that good, Corbin? So I did quite like that. I think going in from either side helped. I'll try the other drill bit and see which is easier from the other side. Okay?
I'm done. No.
So we've got the other drill bit, which is kind of more, it's rounder. So I don't know what this is going to be like. Let's give this a go, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's have a look. So we're going to line that up. A bit harder to line up this one. There we go. Go in. So very gentle. Oh! Now that seemed to fracture almost straight away. It's not broken it, but it wasn't very gentle at all. So in fact, I'm going to not use that at all, and I'm going to stick with the wood drill bit. There we go, Corbin showing us the drilled holes. There they go. I haven't drilled these ones just because I've got a different bit for these. There is a slightly smaller button in the set that I have that is 24 millimeters, not 28 like this one. The trick that I've found so far, because I was quite nervous because the acrylic's quite brittle and it stinks, doesn't it? When you're using it, there's quite a smell to drilling acrylic, is I let the drill do all the hard work. I didn't push in because I think that would fracture it. I just put it on a high speed and let the weight of the drill through, and then what I did is I flipped it over and drilled the other side. I felt that was giving a cleaner edge. I felt that if I was going to push through all the way, that was going to crack. So you can just use wood if you want something a bit easier. But I found that I just want a nice polished edge to this, and I think the black will work quite nicely with the lights. What do you think, Corbin? We're going all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay then. Next bit, put them all in.
I'm done.
And that's the case of putting the buttons in the holes, isn't it, Corbin? So, we've got all the buttons. They're looking quite nice there, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got the joysticks will come underneath here. I'm just going to give it some thought for this one because I don't really want to drill through here with these parts for the bolts. I potentially could glue them, I suppose, but I don't think there's any other option. I don't think there's another option, so I'm probably going to have to drill them, at least for this first version. Then I'll look at maybe gluing them in a second version. Okay, the next part is just to put these on the underside. They screw in to stop the buttons from falling out. While Corbin's been making that, it's important to note that there is a kind of right way and a wrong way to do this. In this particular buttons that we use, you can see there's a slight kind of hat shape there. It's important that well, it's not vital, but it's useful to align them all so they're all facing up that way. It doesn't matter as long as they're all facing the same way. It doesn't matter if you put that down that way or up that way, as long as they're all the same way, otherwise it will cause you confusion with the wiring. So make sure that you see that those spades which are connected to the grey bit are on the top, and these spades that aren't connected are at the bottom, or vice versa, as long as all the buttons are the same for all of them. So Corbin's helped me, haven't you, Corbin?
Yeah.
Yeah, Corbin's helped me to get all the buttons sorted. Like I said, I'm just going to do the top ones later when I've just got the other drill bit in. And we're kind of ready to go a little bit here, aren't we? It's starting to look very nice, isn't it? We'll put the controllers through the bottom and start the wiring process. But I think we're nearly done for this section in the workshop. I'll probably do the majority of the next at home, just because it's just a lot of wiring now. I think we'll be okay. And just testing it out for Corbin, let's just put one of these through the bottom. Let's see what it looks like. There we go, we can put these there. Okay, Corbin, you're going to test it. Does that look a bit better? Your hand's in the way, yeah? I think when you're using it, your hands aren't going to get in the way of those buttons. That's quite good. I think we're about okay there. Can you press those buttons okay? Yeah? Yeah, I think is this quite nice? Yeah, you're liking it. You can press all the buttons you want to. Excellent. So yeah, it's looking quite nice. Just going to test the lights out, see what they're like, and then I think we probably go home and do all the wiring, yeah? Okay, so I've made sure that all these pins are all facing the same direction to make my life easier. And what I've done is I've just plugged this into a USB port, a random USB power port, just to test stuff out, just to see what the lights look like. Nothing to do with the controller. You could actually leave all these out if you wanted to, because this is just for aesthetics. It came with these spades and one controller here, and if you put that into the power hub there, which is the 5-volt power hub, you can just connect these in like a daisy chain here. And the way that works is you just keep going. You just go here. They even say there's a positive and a negative or written on the actual button. It says positive and negative, and you just a case of putting the positive to the positive, which is the red, slotting it in, putting it with its pair there. Just do it as we go along. And you can see the lights going on there straight away. There we go. And then you just keep going around all the way through all of the devices. Now you don't have to have this on while you do it. I'm just doing this so I can show you what it looks like. But you just put them on as they go around, and each time you do it, you'll see that it's just connecting. So you'll see there that that's starting to look quite nice. All the buttons are lit up. Let me just show you what it looks like here. We've got daylight, so we're not quite seeing it. If I take that out, there you go, they're out, they're off. Put them on. So Corbin, shall I put the lights on?
Yeah.
Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, looking. There we go. So we got our lights. Press the buttons, check they're all okay. There we are. Looks much better. I think the black with the lights looks quite nice. And we'll put the joysticks in a second, and that last remaining smaller button here and here, all in exactly the same way. And then the wiring will begin. I might start the wiring here to show you the difficult parts, and then just crack on with that at home. Okay, the next stage is to wire up each of the buttons. So the annoyance here is that these buttons come ready to go into this PCB, and each of the slots is for a specific button. Our problem is that we don't want to use this part. We actually want them to go into each and every part of the Xbox adaptive controller. Each one needs to go in here through a 3.5mm jack, like a headphone jack. So the annoyance here is then we're going to have to rewire quite a lot of stuff, just strip some wires. So there's different ways you can do this. We have our positive and negative again, and it's important you get these the right way around. They are labelled on these diagrams here, on many of them, and the positive is in the diagrams on the right here, and the negatives on the left. So that's the easy part. The spades go in very, very nicely. The difficulty is this part here. We're just going to clip it off because it is designed to just go straight into here, but we just need to take a pair of wire clippers and just clip them off, because we're not going to need this part here at all. It's gone. You might want to keep them for another project on some day. They might come in useful some other time, so don't throw away things like that. That's why I've given them a little bit of edge there, so I could strip them and reuse these parts. I like to reuse things. So here, there you can get wire strippers if you want to. The easiest way is you can use some clippers, and an electrician told me if you turn them kind of the wrong way around, almost with the flat side up, it's easier to strip the wire. Now you might want to do this when it's not connected to the spade. It's a little bit easier. I was just showing you that's there, and it's a little bit of a skill, not too much pressure to pull that off. Maybe practice on some wire first yourself, and it is a bit of patience. So then I just give it a little twist usually, just go there because it's quite frayed, as you can see there. So you just give it a little twist with one hand, and it just spirals it around a little bit to just be a little bit more professional. Now, the next thing that you could do is you could take your soldering iron and you could then connect and solder to a piece of electrical cable. So I've got some speaker cable here, just 2 wires, there we go, and I'm going to use this to connect to these 3.5mm jacks that I have. Now, the easiest way to do this, it's probably not the best way, in fact it definitely isn't the best way, but it is the easiest way, is actually just to use a bit of tape, a bit of electrical tape. So what you could do is that you could get this wire here, you could just get it next to one, twist it around so it's fairly entwined with the other one. What I like to do is kind of bend it back 90 degrees, or bend it back on itself there we go, to just give it that little bit of extra kind of attachment quality, so you can see it there. And then you could take some electrical tape, don't need much for this, and then you could just tape it together. So I've got that there, tape it, done. And you could leave it like that, just tape it around a couple of times. It is not the strongest in the world, but it does mean if you don't have soldering skills or a soldering iron or anything like that, you don't need to. I mean, it will take a fair bit of pull. It's going to come apart if you really give it a yank, but this is going to be underneath the controller. It's not going to be pulled apart. So in all honesty, you'll get away with that. I do want to be a little bit more secure with what I'm doing here. So this isn't going to need much. It's going to connect. This is at the top of the controller now. Here, it's not going to need much wire to get it to the Xbox controller there at all, if I'm honest. So here, I even think this is a bit of overkill. I've got about 15 centimeters of cable here. Again, I'm just going to split this slightly, just with my nails, just going to pull it apart there. And using the back, again, of the device, of the clippers, I'm just going to pull them. In this case, I'm going to pull a little bit more than I probably require. There we go, and then I'm just going to snip it. The easiest way to do that. What I'm about to show you will mean that I'll just need about a centimetre's worth of wire there, so I'm just going to use the clippers to do that, and then I'll show you possibly a better solution. Now that solution is something you can probably pick up from any car Radio Shack or anything like that, car store. It's these spades. They're used to do a lot of stereo systems, a lot of electronics, and they just go into one another. Now this particular spade has a kind of insulating cover. Some of them are exposed, and you probably don't want to do the exposed one because that could touch other metallic objects. Again, if you have the exposed type, just get yourself a bit of tape and wrap it around. So some electrical tape will be very useful to do that. And what I mean by this, and the reason why I'm using this, and remember I'll probably take both ends to strip here. It's easy to strip it first than when it's connected to something. So again, just using the back. You can use a wire stripper if you find it easier. You will get the knack of this and the strength that you need to require. You'll probably accidentally clip them through, but you will get there. And again, might just give them a little twist around, just to make it a little bit easier there. Little twist, and a little twist. Here we go. So, I'm going to use the spade solution, which I think the soldering one, I'll show people that afterwards, but I think the soldering wire, you know, those people that can solder don't really need me to show them how to do that, but I will do a demonstration of how to do that later, as well as maybe some other techniques on how to connect the wires. So I'm going to stick with this spade wire rather than the tape, just because I want a bit of extra security. So it's just a case of grabbing your wire here. Don't care which way round you do this. I've just got they're male and female. I won't get into why they're male and female. It's fairly obvious. And here, you just put them in, and you can see the wire just slightly sticking out there. And grab a pair of pliers and crimp them together. It might be better, rather than the needle nose pliers here that require a bit more force, it might be better to have a good pair of pliers to do this that require not as much force. And you can see that I've crimped them there, and it won't pull out. I'm pulling that there and it's not coming out. Then you take your female wire there, push that in as well, just check that that's coming through, and once again go in there, give that a good squeeze with the pliers. Again, bigger pliers will help you if you're struggling there. There you go, pulling that, okay, not coming out, just one more squeeze, okay, there we go, and then they will clip together like that. Okay, so that's how you can do these wires without soldering skill. Now there are a variety of other connecting options. You might also, just for a bit of extra security, get a bit of tape, and you might want to tape around the entire body of the wire here, all the way up to there. It'll take you a little bit longer, but that'll give you that extra little strength, I suppose, and security, that once you've done that, nothing's going wrong in there. Now, you know, another thought that you could have here is, as I just pull this apart, is that if you want to go for the concept here, to make it easier, you might want to do one female like this and one male the other side, so you know which is positive and which is negative, so that'll help you not get confused. So I'm now going to spend some time crimping. There's a fair few wires, there's 9 buttons, each with 2 either side. That's going to take me a little while to do, so I will do those. What I want to explain right now is the other side of this. Once we have the spades all connected to here, you will then need to connect them to these jacks that I have. Now these jacks are, they come apart, they unscrew, and again there's 2 options here. Unlike the other option with the spades, there really is, I think, only 2 options here. The first one is to really twist this quite tight, because the holes on the 3.5mm jacks aren't big here. So here you can see. Now there's 3 pins here. I'll probably do a more detailed diagram, and there's different schools of thought here. You can actually, depending on the button, and I have found there's difference in the buttons, which I'll explain later. You can actually just connect those 2 side ones together, or you can connect one of the side ones to the bottom. The options you have are that when you go through here, you can just poke that through the hole with a tight connection. So all I did was make sure I got that really, really tight, because the holes here are very, very, very small, as you can see just there. And you can I slightly splay mine apart, but be careful, because a bit of work hardening will mean that these could fall off given too many backwards and forwards. So you go here, you can just bend it back on itself, and you can twist. So again, not too hard, because you don't want to break the spade there. And there we go. I've got one connection here, and then from the bottom, I can go through the bottom part. Again, you don't have to get every wire, and then I pull it back on itself, and there we go. Now, the only problem I've got here is if these 2 touch, we have a problem, because it will make the connection. So you can solder, and I still think you're going to need a bit of tape, personally, just to keep them for peace of mind, because there's no point doing all of that work and then suddenly having it. So I just take a couple of centimetres of tape there, and then I push it between the two connections there, so one of them cannot touch the other. I just fold it back on itself. So again, soldering will give you that security, but here, if you just squeeze that in, a little bit fiddly, there you go, you can see I've got that segmented out, and then just close it there. It is separate to this wire. I'm going to do the same with the bottom part, just to keep that separate as well. So I'm going to go in between the two wires here. You can see that that's where they are. Going to go just spread that a little bit wider, there we go. Making sure again that sometimes you can use a screwdriver with this just to make sure that you could do this a little bit longer, I suppose, and then pull it back and twist it on itself. But I've bent it back on itself. I'm going to widen it a little bit there, put the tape in between. There we go, so you can see I've separated that out. Wrap it in on itself, there we go. And I've got that together. I'm just going to wrap them together. They are now separated, not the most secure because I've not soldered, so on my ones I probably will solder, but just to show you that you don't need to, all of this is very accessible. Then I'm going to put the wire through the bottom part there, pull it up, and it does, if you just give it a little squeeze and then twist into this jack, you then have, there we go, a solid. I'm pulling that there, don't pull it too hard because it will pull eventually, and there you go, you've got your jack, and that goes very nicely into these parts here, and that's it. So you connect this to this using the spades or using anything else, so I'm going to show you that in a second, and then you have your button all connected, and it's just repeating that process over and over. There's 18 buttons, it does take a little while, but that is the crux of this problem. It isn't technically difficult, it is just a lot of patience for it to work. So choose the method that I've laid out for you, whether that's spade, whether that's soldering, or whether that's any other method that you care to do, including just the twisting and tape, which requires no soldering. So my kind of model is, if you can wire a plug, you can make one of these devices. Patience, a little bit of confidence, and that's it. So I'm going to do all that wiring now, one by one, and then show you the next stages. Thank you. Okay, I'm back home now, and what I've done is I've got a 24mm drill bit there. It wasn't very new, and there was a little bit of worry there because it was taking a little while to go through. But these smaller buttons that came in the pack are 24mm. Okay, version 2 here, looking quite nice now. Got the controllers there fixed in. Still would like to find a different way of attaching these potentially, but it's not too bad. And got these now, lights work, just a case of now wiring it up. Now, when it comes to the actual design, I would like it to be slightly angled. The biggest issue is I tried to get these as far up as possible. So it's looking quite nice now. The controllers work here. Well, they're fixed anyway. I'd probably like to maybe find a better way of attaching these so I've got a nice clean finish here. Probably just glue the underside, but I do like to have something solid working it in. Maybe just countersink, I don't know, I'll have a look. But they work, the buttons work and they light up. Got to do a little bit of wiring now, as discussed previously. My biggest concern is more aesthetics now. I do want to have it angled like this, so it's a kind of easier rest for the arm. The biggest issue will be basic trigonometry, really. When it comes here, it'll be those bottom parts, and what you can see there is those spades. I think I'm going to have to bend those slightly. I have to be careful there to give myself a little bit of play. And then I think the angle that I'll be best with is this one. It's quite severe though. I can't do much about that because of the bottom button there. Potentially in future ones, maybe the buttons could go higher to allow a shallower one, but I don't know, I quite like that. I'll probably have it a little off the ground anyway, and that kind of angle looks quite nice to me, because I do need to slip the Xbox adaptive controller underneath. So yeah, it is looking quite nice now, and I'm quite pleased so far. Just get some boxing around it and some wiring, and let's see where we go from here. So making my way now, so it's important that these are the right way round. So that's the bottom of the controller, and these cables go at the bottom of those, so they're both at the bottom there, and they plug into the end of these PCBs. There is a slot here, but that's an error if you put it into there. It says on the website when you buy them it goes into the end here, and I'm just now fitting these in. So I've crimping them as I showed before. So just taking my time now, taking each of the wires, crimping them out, stripping them, crimping them, and then attaching these that I did earlier, whether you soldered them or just used the tape and twist method. Like I said, just going to take a while now doing these. It's just the patient part. See how it goes. Okay, so I've spent a bit of time soldering some of these. Now, like I said, you don't have to solder, it just makes a stronger grip. And then I'll just remind you of the taping method. How's it going so far, Corbin?
Yeah.
Is it good?
Yes.
Can't wait, can we? It's going to be super duper, this controller.
Yeah.
Alright, going to get back to it. See you in a minute. Okay, the hardest bit, I wanted to have a kind of sloping side here. So I did play around with just some basic dimensions. I'll put those online. We've got about 12 centimeters up here. We've got a full there, which is the A3 size, which is just short of 30 centimeters. So is this. Did a bit of maths and trigonometry. My old stuff came in. I mean, this is very rough, but I've just put some leftover bolts that I had and some corner pieces just to shore up the sides. It's not perfect. I'll put the details up, but I haven't gone into detail about this because this isn't the way I would properly do it. Some of the bolts came up too far and I had to hacksaw them off. But you know, it's okay. And I grab the actual controller piece here and drag it in. You know, I think it's you know, just blow some dust off there. I think it's starting to look quite the part. It does fit. I've just put it on there. It's just going to find a way of I'll probably just put a bolt in here to the side using those same corner pieces. But I think it's coming on quite nicely. It lights up nicely. I'm going to do some testing in a moment with the buttons as I normally do. But it's coming on nice. I think it'll look really good when the lights are on it. I'll probably just either paint this or put some vinyl. And to be honest, I think the way it's starting to look, I might actually just give it a little bit of a rise there so it's got less of an angle, and maybe get a carpenter to do a decent job on that. You know, very rough, but I really like it. It's coming on. Okay, so it's a bit later, but it's time to map the buttons. Now what we need to do is grab the switch, plug it in to the Magic NS, plug it in, and then I'm just going to attach all the cables. Now rather than just show you all of this now, I'll do a diagram and explain which one's mapped to which, yeah, the diagram's going to be more important than watching all these cables go in. As you can see, even though it's dark, there's too many kind of wires to try and make sense of there, so I'm not going to bother. What I'm going to do is just put it all in the box, just carefully, put the screws in, and I'll do a wiring diagram for that. But it's all working. I tested it out on the device. Okay, last night I came across a bit of a problem. In an effort to get this kind of ergonomic design, I had neglected to realise that the actual Xbox itself takes up a little bit of space at the bottom there. I thought it was going to slide back enough, The real issue came because I'd really forgotten about the jack lengths themselves. I thought I was going to push the whole thing up against the back of the box, but that's not the case. So it doesn't quite close. So what I'm going to do is just raise this up by 4 centimeters. Just still give it that slope, but not the wedge perfectly. So that'll give that a little bit more space for everything to fit inside, and I'll just have to redo the sides a little bit. So a little setback, but that's the whole point of prototyping. Okay, I think this will work a little bit better. So I've just raised the front part up, still giving it a bit of an ergonomic slant. I'm going to try and stick everything in now and see how it all goes. So we'll see in a minute. Okay, so it seems to have worked. We've just put the Xbox controller in here. There's enough space for the cables now. I'll do a map of how I did that, which button goes to which one, because the A and B buttons are slightly mixed up on that. But it all looks very good. I'm just going to screw it down now. I've plugged in the USB. I've drilled a little hole at the back there just for the USB-C port that goes into the adapter there, and it's a bit of a mess in there, but just a little bit of careful rearrangement, and we'll see it working in a second. Okay, I'm pretty pleased with this. I'm no carpenter, so the box is going to need some work. I'm going to speak to someone, and it took me a little while to get the shape right on that, but it's the basis. I think the Perspex is the right option for the top. I'll work out templates for the box now that I've kind of got the idea of it. But it's certainly an improvement from version 1, where I couldn't even close the lid on this with the wires. Here I've got a box with a kind of nice ergonomic slide to that, and it all works. You know, the proof's in the pudding. I stick out Zelda there. See how this goes. Just get the A button sorted. There we go. Again, we're all good. We can jump up. We can move around. We can attack. It's all pretty good. I'm very pleased with this. So the proof's in the pudding. What do the kids think? Everybody. Hey, yeah, right. So I've got version 2 ready. Okay. Who's excited? Okay, right. Let's get this done. So, in 3, 2, 1. Do you like it, Ava? Is it good? Let me just move that out. There we go. Do you want to have a go with it? There we go. Shall I sit you on the edge and we'll have a go with it? Who's first? Who's first? Who gets first go? No. We'll both have a turn, alright? Let's have a go.